I came on, I did a Brace for Impact earlier this week, and we had breaking news, and Gerard jumped in the chat and broke some news. Well, that is going to happen again, so let me hit the button.
Breaking news.
According to Gerard Ryan of bodyslam.net, Mustafa Ali just announced to Denise Salcedo he's re-signed with the company being, I'm sure, TNA Wrestling. Gerard, if you can get the details on that, I'd greatly appreciate it. I'm not going to be able to. Hold on, let me see if I can pull up on my phone some of that information. But I figured that he would re-sign. So this is in a YouTube video and an interview with Denise Salcedo, but I have not seen a story get published just yet. So if a story gets published, let me know, and I will be able to read the story live on the air. But it's airing on her YouTube channel. Okay, so we don't have any details. We don't know if it's multiple years. We don't know anything at this point. So we will hold off on a lot of the details until a press release gets sent out. But you would think that a re-signing this big for a guy that's been as important to the company as Mustafa Ali has, like, no one in that company is working harder in their matches than Mustafa Ali. Like, that guy just puts it all on the line. He kills himself in almost every match, to where, like, you want to just, like, tell the guys, like, bro, you know, some of this stuff is not that serious. You don't have to go that hard, but he goes that hard. You know, that match that he had with Ethan Page on the NXT show not too long ago for the whatever title, North American title, I think is what Ethan has, was just incredible. The guy has just had nothing but great match after great match. And I had a discussion with a guy who is a big AEW fan, and so naturally he thinks that TNA doesn't have great matches, which boggles my mind. It's like, you must not be watching, or if you are, you're watching it with like a lens on, where you already have this predisposition that it's bad. So when you go into watching the show, nothing can be good. It can only be bad. And then you look at different points to be able to validate your opinion, which happens a lot because, you know, AEW fans, TNA fans, WWE fans, CMLL fans, AAA fans, New Japan, know all. Like, everybody has, like if that's your team, then you have this predisposition to where you have to do whatever you can to validate your opinion. And then everything outside of that team must be bad, right? Or if it's like a rival team, then it must be bad. So, like, say, like, if you're an AEW fan, you can like some stuff on New Japan, but you're probably not gonna like stuff on Noah, right? Or if you're a WWE fan, you'll like some stuff on Noah, but you probably won't like some stuff on New Japan, right? Because of the partnerships and the friendships and the rivalries and all that stuff. So I had someone tell me that Mustafa Ali doesn't have good matches. Like, there's no way you're watching the show. There's just absolutely no way you're watching the show. This guy, like, kills himself almost on a weekly basis, right? And goes above and beyond, working with sometimes like guys who are not stars, who are not great workers, and they're not big stars, and he's like making them look like great workers and big stars. Or he's working with a guy who is a great worker and not a big star, like a Jason Hotch, making that guy look like $1 million. You know, working with, you know, Fandango, who does have some talent, but he never really like went above and beyond in his matches. His matches are always very basic. But when he got in there with Mustafa Ali, they structured out a match to where, you know, Fandango doing like upped his game, working with Mustafa Ali. And just, I could, like, you know, obviously the matches with Speedball and I think Jake something, and who we'll get into in a little bit, but just, you know, time and time again, the guy has gone above and beyond, has just like over delivered, far and away above probably what he should be doing, and what he's expected to do in TNA. And my hope is that he is signed here for a long period of time. Because he is a top guy here. I think he's going to be the world champion this year for sure. Um, Absolutely for sure. Like his feuds are never like the paint by numbers feuds that you get with some of the other folks because you can tell he has a lot of input on what he's doing. His feud with Mike Santana last year was just fantastic, just absolutely amazing feud. The year before that, his feud with Speedball. While I knew they were going to do some cornball Montreal shit, it ended up working, right? But that match at Slammiversary was one of the better matches of that year. And it wasn't because of the moves and all the stuff they did. They told a story, right? Mustafa Ali is one of those rare guys who has come over from WWE and he was working, opening matches and doing all that. He was never really a featured guy other than, for short stints. And he, was, essentially a cruiserweight, but he comes to TNA and he is a rare guy that can do all of the moves. He can do all of the kickouts, have these great matches, but also can do the main event style of slowing it down at times, telling stories and having these big feuds and actually sacrificing star ratings to further along a story at times, right? Like he is one of those guys, and when he does it, it works. It doesn't work for everybody for whatever reason. When he does it, it works, and it works in TNA. I think what he does and what he brings to the table is very valuable to TNA and for what they need at this point in time. They need a top guy who's been around a long time that can work, your X Division style. He can do the hardcore styles. Like when the System versus Order 4 at Bound for Glory, he was the guy in that match. He was like the best worker in the entire match, and he was just fantastic. He can work tags. He can, he's leading a faction right now. He's the best heel on the show. And I think one day when they decide to, I think they can flip him back to babyface. But now you got a guy who is, now that he's signed, should ascend to that top heel spot. I always said that, whenever they get the belt back on Mike Santana, they need to revisit the feud with Ali from 2025. And I think in that feud that really sold the company that both guys could be main event players and that both guys are world champion material. And I fully believe that at some point this year, maybe by the summer, Mustafa Ali is going to be the world heavyweight champion. Mike Santana doesn't need like a super long run. I'd like to see him get 4 to 6 months, right? And then at some point, we got to flip that belt back to a heel. And then him and other baby faces need to be chasing. That's how I would do things. And he has elevated everybody he's ever been in the ring with. The guy is invaluable to this company, and I think this is a great move by TNA to focus in on him and hone in on him. They're probably letting some other guys go. The two guys that we just lost, or that they just lost, in Matt Cardona and Jake something. I don't think they had a choice in the matter. Those guys were not staying regardless because of the offers they got. And so they can focus in on a guy like Mustafa Ali, who I believe is going to be one of the faces of this company for as long as he's signed here. Now, how long that is, we just don't know yet. Gerard said he's going to pop out and get some details on that, which means he's watching Denise's show instead of mine. But let me go back to Twitter. Let me just see if there is any details on it. But we saw this coming. In the lead up to AMC, we're gonna get more talent re-signing announcements. That is going to happen. We're going to see more talent re-signing announcements in the lead up because they're trying to keep their name in the discussion leading up to it in a positive manner. And when you re-sign or when you sign somebody new, that gets your fan base excited, and that gets consumers excited, and people that probably aren't watching the show, that's going to get them excited. Signing and re-signing talent lets everybody know, lets the viewers know, lets the consumers know that you're here to do business, right? Like you're here to be taken seriously. And so that makes sense. But yeah, we got some breaking news to start the show off. I did not start the stream with that news in mind. I had no idea that it was coming. It just so happened to hit. So That was a very happy accident. So tonight on Impact, or tonight on Brace for Impact, after Impact is off the air, I'll be back tonight, a little after 10 p.m. And hopefully we'll have some more details for Mustafa Ali. But we're gonna go ahead and nip or put a bow on that, or put a pin in that discussion about Mustafa Ali, um, unless Gerard shows back up with some new information. Jay Bruce, I think this is Jason Bruce, said hopefully Maclin will be re-signed. So I did talk to somebody last night, and it's not like an insider or something like that, but somebody that kind of like listens to all the dirt sheets and all the stuff, and it's kind of up on the news, and said that they said that Sean Ross Sapp was on Fightful Select and seemed like he was leaning towards Steve Maclin re-signing. I happen to be a believer that Maclin is not only re-signing, I think he's already been re-signed. I think he's sticking around. Now, I did talk about it last night whenever Jake appeared on AEW, and Josh Alexander had quote tweeted talking about family. Well, me and him have had kind of a back and forth about Steve Maclin, because Steve Maclin's one of his best friends and one of his favorite opponents. And now that Jake is gone, and I'm excited for Jake, and we're going to talk about him in a minute, but I made the comment that if TNA continues to play hardball with Steve, that I'm going to make it my mission to get Steve into AEW. And I will do that if TNA does not take him seriously and sign him to a long-term deal. If we're going to keep getting these short-term deals with Steve, and he's never, he's been pushed and he's been a featured guy, but I think that he's being miscast right now, and I think he's being misused. And it's because I don't think that the creative team knows how to book someone in the military. Like they can't book foreign stars, and they can't book Marines, I guess, and they can't book a guy like Jake Something, who's just a big beefy bastard that wrecks shop. They just can't book that, right? Which boggles my mind. Now I'll never understand how they couldn't book him, and I'm never gonna understand how they've been kind of dropping the ball on Steve, and because I think Steve can be a top guy for them. And so I will do that. I will start a campaign to get Steve into AEW, because I think that him and Josh Alexander have something as a tag team, and that they're obviously great opponents, and like you can do that tag team, and then Steve can turn on Josh, because Josh is a better babyface and Steve is a better heel, and then you can do that feud again in AEW, and then this time they will be given the creative license and the time to go out and have the type of match that they probably wanted to have when they were in TNA, and they had great matches in TNA, but they could probably even, expand on those if Steve were to go to AEW. But his best home, if TNA is going to take him seriously and they're going to value him, is TNA, because I do think that he has the potential to be not only a top guy, but for a period, like the top guy. I think he's got a world title run in him, should they decide to go that route. And I think that they should decide to go that route, because I think Steve is fantastic. And this isn't just, me caping for a military guy. There's been other military guys out there that I haven't done that for. I try to support every person that's, like a military affiliated that comes into pro wrestling. But then there's some guys that take a look at it and I'm like, I just can't, right? Like, I just not a fan of what they do. But Steve is a guy that has totally rebuilt his career here in TNA, to where I forget that he was Steve Cutler in NXT. I completely overlook his NXT run. I do not see him as Steve Cutler. To me, he's bad motherfucking Marine Steve Maclin that's been wrecking shop in TNA, and at times has been a main event player for them. I just don't think he's been a main event player consistent enough for them, and I think that's their fault. And I think right now they have placed him in a role that he just doesn't fit, and they need to figure that part out. I think they should watch the Punisher series on Netflix, and then take a look at Steve and adopt a lot of the characters, adopt a lot of that character. Even go back and watch the old Punisher movies, and maybe read some of the comic books, and take his real personality, and then kind of blend the two, and then now you have a main event superstar in Steve Maclin. I think the guy's got it. I do. But right now, as this white meat babyface, he doesn't come across as very confident in that role, and I think he needs to be more bad motherfucker. And what I mean by bad motherfucker, when he's coming down to make the save and his music hits, the fans don't go crazy, because when the music hits, he's going to come in and get a couple punches on some people, and then like the heels are going to take over, right, fairly quickly. They're waiting for Mike Santana to come out. I think Steve should be in that role at some point. But everybody's gonna have to sell for him, right? But nobody sees, the audience doesn't see Steve in that light because of the way he's being presented. It's a presentation problem. So I think he could get there. He just needs to get the people behind him. They have to be able to value him and respect his ability to be and to do that and totally commit to the character. But he needs to have like a character. The guy's got great catchphrases. He's got great logos. He's got great T-shirts. He's got great music. Now they got to really just kind of jump in and commit to the character and expand on it and breathe new life into it. But I think Steve Maclin is a guy. So yeah, Jason, I completely agree.